I never imagined my daughter would say the words that changed everything between us. Not at her wedding reception, not with the lights dimmed for toasts, not as the guests held their breath, but she did. Sarah turned to me, her veil catching the soft glow, and said clear enough for everyone to hear, "I wish you weren't my mother." The room went silent. A glass slipped from someone's hand. Whispers started like a wave. I felt all eyes on me, the older woman in a modest gray dress. But I didn't break. I stood tall. 60 years of life had taught me strength no words could shatter. Elizabeth, her new mother-in-law, paused mid-sip of champagne. Sarah's groom froze, his smile fading fast. A guest nearby let out a quiet gasp. Sarah tried to speak again, but no sound came. The band stopped playing. Time seemed to freeze. I stepped back from the stage, leaving the perfect night behind, and let the quiet grow. But before I share what came after that shocking moment, you need to know the hidden story that led us there. The one full of quiet sacrifices and growing distance that no one saw coming. "Sarah," I said, calm and clear, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "if that's really what you wish for, then your wish is granted." I never imagined my daughter would say the words that changed everything between us. Not at her wedding reception, not with the lights dimmed for toasts, not as the guests held their breath. But she did. Sarah turned to me, her veil catching the soft glow, and said clear enough for everyone to hear, "I wish you weren't my mother." The room went silent. A glass slipped from someone's hand. Whispers started like a wave. I felt all eyes on me, the older woman in a modest gray dress. But I didn't break. I stood tall. 60 years of life had taught me strength no words could shatter. Elizabeth, her new mother-in-law, paused mid-sip of champagne. Sarah's groom froze, his smile fading fast. A guest nearby let out a quiet gasp. Sarah tried to speak again, but no sound came. The band stopped playing. Time seemed to freeze. I stepped back from the stage, leaving the perfect night behind, and let the quiet grow. But before I share what came after that shocking moment, you need to know the hidden story that led us there. The one full of quiet sacrifices and growing distance that no one saw coming. "Sarah," I said, calm and clear, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "if that's really what you wish for, then your wish is granted." Her face went white. The fake smile she'd been wearing cracked and fell away. A few guests gasped. Her new husband reached for her arm, but she didn't even notice. I didn't wait for apologies that weren't coming. I didn't raise my voice. I simply turned, walked straight down the 3 little steps from the stage, and kept going. Past the tables, past the staring faces, head high, until I reached the double doors at the back of the ballroom. I pushed them open and stepped into the quiet hallway. The doors closed behind me with a soft thud, shutting out the music, the whispers, and the daughter who had just erased me in front of everyone. That night, I did something no one in that room expected, not even me, until that very moment. And by morning, my daughter's perfect new life started falling apart, piece by piece. 6 months before the wedding, my life in Charlotte was the same every day. I got up at 5, made coffee, and drove to the little accounting office where I did books for a chain of dry cleaners. At night, I worked the front desk at a small hotel near the airport, checking in tired travelers and smiling even when my feet hurt. 2 jobs, no vacations, no complaints. Every extra dollar went straight into an envelope I kept in my dresser drawer. The envelope said, "Sarah's wedding," in my handwriting. By then, it already held almost $180,000.
The wedding planner had warned me the total would be close to $250,000 with everything Sarah wanted. The country club venue, the band from Atlanta, the beach honeymoon in Aruba, the down payment on the new condo in South Park. I never told Sarah the real numbers. When she sent me another contract or another deposit link, I just paid it and went back to work. Most nights, I got home after 11, heated up leftovers, and fell asleep on the couch still wearing my uniform. I told myself it was worth it. My only child was getting the wedding she dreamed of, the life she said I never gave her. I was happy to make it happen. What I didn't see yet was how easily she was already starting to leave me out of that dream.
One Saturday, I drove to Sarah's new apartment with a check for the final $18,000 on her wedding gown. I sat on her couch waiting while she finished a call in the kitchen. The door was open and her phone was on speaker. "Don't stress," Sarah laughed to her maid of honor. "Mom's bringing the check today. She always pays. That's just what she does." They both laughed like it was the most normal thing in the world. I sat there holding the check, feeling my stomach twist. She said it so easily, like I was a credit card, not her mother. I folded the check smaller in my hand and waited. A minute later, she walked in, smiling bright. "Hey, Mom, you have the gown money, right?" I handed it over without a word. She kissed my cheek, already turning back to her phone. "You're the best," she said, not even looking at me. I drove home with the radio off. That little laugh of theirs kept playing in my head. That was the first time I realized my daughter was ashamed of me, and she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. A few weeks later, Sarah took me to meet Mark's parents at their big house in Myers Park. I wore my best navy dress and the small gold earrings I saved for special days. Elizabeth opened the door with a smile that stopped at her lips. "Come in, Linda. We're keeping it casual tonight," she said, while wearing diamond studs and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. The dining room looked like a magazine. Fresh flowers, real silver, wine glasses that rang when you touched them. Elizabeth poured me the same expensive red she gave everyone else, then said, "So, Linda, Sarah tells us you work 2 jobs. That must be exhausting at your age." I smiled politely. "It keeps me busy." Sarah laughed a little too loud. "Mom's used to it. She's always worked." Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. "Well, some of us are lucky enough to have choices." I felt my cheeks get warm, but kept quiet. During dessert, the wedding planner dropped off the new invitation proofs. Elizabeth spread them on the table like she was the one getting married. I leaned over to see. The top line read, "Hosted by Dr. and Mrs. Robert Hamilton." My name was in tiny print at the bottom, almost off the page. I looked at Sarah. She was already nodding. "It looks cleaner this way, Mom. Less crowded." Elizabeth touched Sarah's arm. "Exactly, honey. Simple is always more elegant." Sarah smiled at her like she had just been given the best advice in the world. She never once looked back at me. I folded my napkin, put it beside my plate, and excused myself to the restroom. In the mirror, I saw a tired woman in a dress that suddenly felt cheap. That night I drove home knowing one thing for sure. My daughter had already started choosing whose mother she wanted to be. Over the next months, the wedding samples kept coming to my house because I was paying for them. One afternoon, I opened a big white box, the final ceremony programs, the menu cards, and the big welcome sign for the venue door. I spread them across my kitchen table. The welcome sign read, "Today, 2 families become one. Please pick a seat, not a side." Underneath in beautiful gold script, "Hosted by Dr. and Mrs. Robert Hamilton." My name wasn't anywhere, not even at the bottom. The program listed Mark's parents first, then second, then in tiny letters at the very end, and Mrs. Linda Carter. The menu card think the Hamilton family for the dinner. Nothing about me. I called Sarah. She answered on speaker. I could hear Elizabeth in the background. "Sarah, honey, My name is barely on anything." She sighed like I was bothering her. "Mom, Elizabeth says too many names look cluttered. It's classier this way. You're still in there." Elizabeth's voice came closer. "Linda, people care about the couple, not the checkbook. Trust me, this is better for everyone." Sarah laughed a little. "See, Mom, it's fine. You worry too much." I stared at the stack of paper in front of me. 250 programs, menus, signs, everyone telling the guests I didn't really belong. I folded the box closed and set it by the door for Sarah to pick up. That was the day I started wondering how much more of me she was planning to erase before the wedding even started. The night before the wedding, we had the rehearsal dinner at the country club. I walked in wearing the same navy dress I'd worn to their house. It was the nicest thing I owned. The hostess smiled, checked her list, and said, "Mrs. Carter, you're at table 12. Table 12 was in the far back corner, next to the kitchen doors. I had to walk past every other table to get there. Sarah sat up front with Mark and his parents, laughing under the fairy lights like she belonged there forever. I sat down alone. An older aunt from Mark's side ended up at my table by mistake. She looked around, realized, and gave me a sad little smile before they moved her up front. When the toast started, Sarah stood first. She held her glass high and said, "I just want to thank the people who made this whole wedding happen. Elizabeth and Robert, you've welcomed me like your own daughter from day one. You've turned this into the most perfect weekend anyone could ask for." She went on for 2 minutes about how generous they were, how much she loved her new family. My name never came up, not once. People started looking around for me. A couple of my old coworkers sitting closer to the front gave me worried glances. When Sarah sat down, Elizabeth leaned over and kissed her cheek. Everyone clapped. After dinner, one of the younger bridesmaids slipped into the chair beside me. She whispered, "Mrs. Carter, I thought for sure Sarah was going to thank you tonight. We all did." I just nodded and smiled like it didn't hurt. I excused myself early, walked out to the parking lot, and sat in my car for 10 minutes so nobody would see me cry. The real wedding was still 24 hours away, and I already felt like I didn't belong at it. The morning of the wedding, I slipped into the bridal suite carrying a small blue envelope. Inside was a short letter I had written the night before, just a few lines telling Sarah how proud I was and how I would always love her no matter what. The room was loud with curling irons and laughter. I waited quietly until Sarah saw me. She was already in her robe, makeup perfect. She walked over and pulled me to the side, away from the others. "Sarah," she answered to me in a low voice. "Mom, please don't do anything at the reception tonight. No speech, no getting up to talk, no stories about when I was little. Just sit and smile. Elizabeth says extra stuff makes everything messy and people get bored." I held out the envelope. "I wasn't planning a speech, honey. I just wrote you this. It's short." She didn't take it. She glanced back at Elizabeth, who was watching us, then looked at me again. "We really don't have time for that today. Please, Mom, just let the night stay perfect." I slid the letter back into my purse. My hand wasn't even shaking. I smiled the same smile I gave tired guests at the hotel desk. "Okay, Sarah," I said. "Whatever you need." She gave me a quick hug and hurried back to her chair. I stood there a second longer, watching my only child turn into someone else's daughter right in front of me. By that evening, she would say the words out loud that finished breaking my heart, and I would finally do the one thing she never expected. The reception was beautiful. Everything Sarah wanted. The band played softly. The lights were low and warm. People laughed and raised their glasses. I sat at my table near the back and watched my daughter shine in her white dress. Then the MC took the microphone and smiled at the room. And now, he said cheerfully, we'll hear a few words from the mother of the bride, Mrs. Linda Carter. I started to stand. My heart was beating fast, but I was ready to say something short and simple, just how proud I was of her. Before I could take 2 steps, Sarah was already up. She walked straight to the center of the dance floor, grabbed the microphone from the MC, and laughed like it was all planned. Actually, she said, loud and clear, we're keeping the speeches short tonight. We don't need one from my mom. Thank you. A few people chuckled, thinking it was a joke. I stopped walking. The room got quieter. Sarah looked right at me, and her smile disappeared. Her voice got sharper. Mom, just sit down. You always have to make everything about you. I opened my mouth to answer, calm as always. Sarah, I was only going to... I wish you weren't my mother, she shouted into the microphone. The words rang out across the whole ballroom. The music stopped dead. A wine glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the floor. 200 faces turned to stare at me. Elizabeth covered her mouth. Mark looked like he'd been slapped. I stood there for 1 second, maybe 2, feeling every eye in the room. Then I did the only thing left to do. I turned around, walked out those doors, and never looked back. 10 minutes later, in a quiet room upstairs, I made sure Sarah's perfect new life would never be the same. I found the little sitting room upstairs, the one meant for bridesmaids to fix their makeup. It was empty and quiet. I locked the door, sat on the sofa, and opened the thick folder I had carried in my purse for months. Inside were all the papers with my name on them. The country club's final payment, $42,000 due before midnight tonight. The Aruba Resort honeymoon, non-refundable, balance $18,000. The South Park condo deposit and lease I had co-signed last month. The designer wedding gown final fitting, payment. The luxury car lease Sarah and Mark had picked out last month. My phone buzzed. Final confirmation required in 30 minutes, or booking will be released. I opened my banking app first. 1 tap. Honeymoon payment stopped. Then the country club contract. 1 email. I am withdrawing financial responsibility effective immediately. Sent. Condo management. Same message. Sent. Gown boutique. Payment canceled. Sent. Car lease. Cosigner removed. Sent. Every click felt lighter, like I was taking my own name back, 1 line at a time. I closed the folder, slipped it into the trash can by the door, and walked out. The music from downstairs sounded far away now. By the time Sarah woke up the next morning, still wearing her veil and thinking she had won, her perfect world was already gone, and she had no idea I was the one who took it away. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7. First voicemail, Sarah, still half asleep and confused. Mom, the resort says our honeymoon booking is gone. Call me. Second, 10 minutes later, louder, they're giving our suite to someone else right now. What is going on? Third, almost screaming, Elizabeth is losing her mind. Fix this. I let it ring. By noon, Sarah begged me to meet her at the little park where I used to push her on the swings when she was 5. She stood there in sweatpants and yesterday's makeup, eyes red. Mom, why are you doing this? She cried. The condo fell through, the car lease is canceled, the club wants payment today or they'll sue. You're ruining my life. I stayed calm. Sarah, I paid for every bit of that life, almost $250,000. And last night, you told 200 people you wished I wasn't your mother. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, I didn't mean it like that.
You meant it exactly like that. Elizabeth called me herself that afternoon, first time ever. Her voice was ice. Linda, this is childish. Fix the payments and we can all move on. I said, no thank you, and hung up. 3 weeks later, I walked into Sarah's office carrying a box of leftover wedding favors that had been mailed to my house by mistake. She was in the lobby complaining loudly to her boss. My mother is doing this out of spite. She's always been jealous. Her boss looked up and saw me. Mrs. Carter, you're listed as Sarah's emergency contact and relocation guarantor. After what I just heard, do you want to stay in those roles? Sarah's face went white. Mom, wait! I smiled politely. Please remove my name from everything. 2 clicks on the computer. Done. Her boss shrugged. Company policy. We'll have to adjust your position until the paperwork is fixed. Sarah's new title and corner office disappeared that same day. She followed me to the parking lot. I'm sorry, she said, voice breaking. I was ashamed of where we came from. I thought if I acted like I belonged with them, I really would. I looked at her for a long moment. Honey, you never had to belong with them. You only had to belong with me. I got in my car and drove away. These days, I work one job, sleep through the night, and bought myself a little house with cash. My phone is quiet. My heart is lighter than it's been in years. Sometimes love means holding on. Sometimes love means letting go and never looking back. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. You never know whose heart needs to hear they're worth more than they're being told.